Welcome and thank you for joining me this week for a new podcast session. Today's podcast is about the impact of technology, and in specific, the technology of cell phones, and its impact on cognitive distraction while driving. Philosophers of technology have studied the existence of unintended consequences. However, social constructivists have denied such possibility, such claim that these technology tools have led to unintended consequences. Yet we continue on witnessing destruction due to these technologies. Now, we all know that taking our eyes off the road while driving is dangerous and distracting. Several states have banned texting while driving, stating it's unsafe. But what about this new technology of hands-free technology that's allowing us to text and talk easier? Isn't it dangerous and distracting as well? Well, here are some facts. 66% say driver use of handheld device is unacceptable, but only 56% say hands-free is acceptable. According to our policymakers, 41 states and DC ban texting while driving, yet zero ban hands-free devices. What about the industry? In-vehicle speech-based technologies and infotainment are proliferating and are often marketed as safe by virtue of being hands-free. But are they safe? Does hands-free mean risk-free? Well, would the 3,000 plus deaths each year caused by distraction be enough to change the law on hands-free technology, to change those facts? What's more is that distraction is being increasingly recognized as a significant source of injuries and death on the roadway. Furthermore, inattention was a huge factor of 78% of all crashes and near crashes. This inattention was classified in two different categories: the catch-all category and a distraction from secondary in-vehicle activities. These secondary in-vehicle activities distractions stem from three sources: visual, when your eyes are off the road; manual, when your hands off the wheel; cognitive, when your mind is off the task. And today's podcast is about the impact of technology on the cognitive distraction, is on this last part, when your mind is off the task. So drivers are saying hands-free is safer than handheld devices. So to challenge the notion that drivers are safe and attentive as long as their eyes are on the road and their hands are on a wheel, the AAA Foundation set out in 2011 to investigate and prove that hands-free does not mean risk-free. AAA Foundation wanted to show that talking on a hands-free cell phone and/or interacting with a speech-to-text email or messaging system such as Siri on the iPhones can indeed place a high cognitive burden on the drivers, hence reducing the available mental resources that can be dedicated to driving. In this landmark study, AAA performed 3 experiments: cognitive workload, cognitive distraction, and increased crash risk. These experiments incorporated laboratory, driving simulator, and instrumented vehicle. 6 common driver tasks were analyzed in each of the experiments, and they are: listening to the radio, listening to an audiobook, conversation with a passenger, conversation on a handheld phone, conversation on a hands-free phone, and interaction with a speech-to-text email system. In the first experiment, a total of 38 male and female participants were asked to complete 8 different 10-minute conditions or activities that were chosen to provide a range of cognitive workload. These conditions resulted in multiple measures showing that as the cognitive workload associated with performing an activity increases, the cognitive distraction associated with performing that same activity while operating a motor vehicle increases as well. For the second experiment, the goal was to extend the findings from the first experiment to operating a driving simulator. 32 male and female with cell phones that are used on a regular basis participated. They were asked to replicate the first experiment's method. However, they were required to use their cell phone with all the scenarios. Based on the results of this second experiment that examined 2 measures of driving performance, considered as sensitive to cognitive distraction, there was an increase in cognitive workload. For instance, the brake reaction time to imperative events in the driving simulator systematically increased as a function of the cognitive workload associated with performing the different in-vehicle activities. For the third experiment, the goal was to show that the patterns obtained from the first and the second experiments generalized to the operation of an instrumented vehicle on residential roadways within a city. For this experiment, 32 male and female participants had to perform those same 8 conditions from both the first and the second experiment, while operating an instrument, which was 2010 Subaru Outback. Drivers were to follow the route and all the local traffic rules, along with a speed limit restriction of 25 miles per hour. Looking at the results from this third experiment, the analysts for this research determined that the patterns observed in the first and second experiments generalized to what was observed in this third experiment. There was a systematic increase in cognitive workload across condition, and driving performance decreased as a function of in-vehicle condition. So what has the AAA Foundation study accomplished? Well, based on the results of all 3 experiments, AAA Foundation confirmed that there are significant impairments to driving that stem from diversion of attention from the task of operating a vehicle, and that the impairments to driving are directly related to the cognitive workload of these in-vehicle activities. Some of these impairments related to cognitive distraction are suppressed brain activity, increased reaction time, decreased accuracy, and decreased visual scanning of the driving environment. Additionally, the speech-to-text system was the most cognitively distracting. This clearly suggests that the adoption of voice-based systems in the vehicle may have unintended consequences that adversely affect traffic safety and the safety of people, drivers. So the bottom line is that hands-free is not risk-free. But technology has advanced so much. How could we stop it? How could we stop this distraction, this danger effect? For one, automotive and electronic industries are to limit voice-activated technology to only core driving-related functions, such as setting the temperature or cruise control. In addition, these industries are to disable voice-to-text for social media, email, and text messaging while a vehicle is in motion. The recommendations are simple, and it takes one company to lead and save lives for others to follow. At the end of the day, how many more lives do we need to lose before we realize that safety is a priority for everyone? Yes, the recommendations are simple, but the nature of technology and how it is intertangled with society, politics, economy, and ecosystem makes it quite challenging. As Andrew Feenberg points out in the 10 Paradoxes of Technology, our own expectations and perceptions of what technology is and how it behaves also blinds us to its effects. Yet, our tendencies to believe technologies can stand alone. So would our tendency make us social constructivists who deny the possibility of these weapons of mass distraction? Before I leave, I'm going to leave you with one final question. Do you view technology as instrumental or substantive? Do you view yourself as a social constructivist? Thank you for joining me. Until next time.